Great. So as we introduced the whole system, a very critical component of this Web3 based art collective is the curatorial aspect. And we have been trying to discover how Sphere can establish such a coordinate in the Web3 realm in that sense. And we stumbled upon an incredible work that was commissioned by Furtherfield to Sarah Friend, who's with us now. And yeah, without giving too many spoilers, I want to leave it to Sarah to walk us through what quadratic voting is. And yeah, we can pick it up later and talk about how it's instrumentalized in the Sphere's context. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, and thanks, Jem. So I am, we can cover what quadratic voting is, though I have not got, you know, the nice walkthrough illustrated slides I like to use when I explain absolutely anything that has to do with numbers. And indeed, actually, I have no slides at all, because I think something more exciting happened this week, at least for me. Which is that we deployed our second version of CultureStake to production. So I wanted to show you what's live as of 2 days ago and actually invite you to use it with me. And as I am responsible for a significant amount of its code base, I really hope it works. You know, demoing is always dangerous. So I'm just going to share my screen and talk you through the app a little bit, and then I'll send you all invitations to vote. So you see CultureStake. So this is live and not password protected for the first time ever, so you can look at it. And there's a bit of content loaded into the app right now, but it's all not real content right now. It's just sort of some test data to vote with. And the fictional Furtherfield Future Fair is the only festival that's in CultureStake so far. But this is what the festival page looks like publicly. And as you can see, we're running a vote to find out which of these 3 artworks should be commissioned in the specific location of Finsbury Park. And I'll just show you the back end a little bit, because I have to use it to invite you, but also because it's maybe nice to see the guts. So this is kind of the administrative interface. Most of the action happens back here on the Create Festival page, which is fairly simple CRUD app in a lot of ways. It has these cute stickers, which you can actually generate on the fly just for fun. Artworks are included in festivals, and also questions that are able to be voted on by anyone who's invited to vote. And the first phase of our work on CultureStake, which was completed in August last year, was to do in-person voting. And so the idea there was that you would go to a physical festival and there'd be a voting booth, and then you would go up to an actual computer, probably a tablet or something, and you'd have collected these stickers throughout the festival that you would scan. And the stickers would look like these little guys here. And then through scanning those stickers, you could vote on the iPad there in the voting booth. But of course, as we all now know and are sick of hearing about, all the festivals got canceled last year. So we began a second phase of work to adapt CultureStake for the online context, and that's what is finished now. So the questions are, well, you'll see them more when we get to the actual voting, but this is a new feature that I'm quite excited about, that we also added in this phase of work, which is to So besides the quadratic transformation of the amount of votes that someone may get, this is a way to customize the weight of the vote based on a variety of parameters. So for example, Furtherfield is really interested in creating things that are well tailored to a specific locality. So here we can input a latitude and a longitude that is like very close to the equator and the international date line. And any radius in kilometers that we want. And then a multiplier that would be applied to votes which are within that circle. And the other types of vote weight that are available, you can have multiple intersecting locations. They can have very different central coordinates. It's pretty flexible. There's also a hotspot that can be run locally from inside a gallery or anywhere. And there can be any number of hotspots with different vote weights attached to a particular vote as well. And we also have an organization vote weight, which is a weighting of a vote based on which organization referred that voter to CultureStake, which we'll see a little bit more on the next thing that I show you. Which is to return to the dashboard. And we're going to vote. There's three ways to vote. There's the booth way. There's the I'm on the hotspot way, where there's a computer on a local network and you go to culturestake.local to vote. But we're going to do the remote way. So I'm connected to this with this website with MetaMask. And I'm going to make a booth key locally in browser. And I'm going to authorize it to vote on Furtherfield Future Fair. And I'm not sure if you can see my MetaMask, but we're running against Kovan for our testing. And in the meantime, I'm going to drop a link to a hack pad in the Zoom chat, which I will learn how to get to somehow while I'm sharing my screen. No. Aha. Okay, so you see a hackpad link, and you can, if you would like to participate, put your email in there. And in the meantime, my transaction went through and the booth is ready. So I'll give you a minute to do that. And I guess in the meantime, does anyone have any questions that I can answer?
Maybe a little clarification for people who are not familiar with HackMD. You have to click on the upper left toggle where you switch to the terminal view, and then you can edit the document. So you can write your email that way.
Yes, very good point. I forget sometimes. Okay, I don't see anyone still typing. Is anyone still? Oh, I do see people still typing.
Sarah, maybe in the meantime, what is the status with regards to Web3 or Web2 advent of this this final implementation?
I guess in what sense?
In the sense that do voters need an Ethereum address? Is voting taking place on chain?
Yeah, it is, but through a meta transaction relayed by us. And it's not, it's more like a commit reveal meta transaction. That's not actually a thing, but you send us in your browser, when you get the vote link, you will actually be creating a burner key and signing your vote. But that's going to happen entirely in the background, and you, the voter, are going to not be given much information that you're using a blockchain. This was a user experience related choice. And then that transaction goes to our API, and there is sent to our contracts, and fees paid by an admin key on our server. We are not planning to run against Ethereum mainnet because we want to pay the fees for all the voters. And also, I think the security parameters of CultureStake are such that it can be on a proof of authority network. But you are actually in the background signing your own vote. And we keep the signatures so that we can, prove the audit, the validity of all the votes, if ever challenged. Whether that gets published by default is not decided, but we do also do a commit reveal on specifically the vote results. So there will be a publishing of the secrets that, anyway, this is, we're a little bit into the weeds technically, but there will be a publication after the vote of data that allows it, some data that allows it to be verified, but specifically which data, I don't think we've decided. So I've input your addresses, your email addresses, and I'm not going to attach an organization, but had I in advance created a Curve Labs, Friends of Curve Labs organization, I could attach that to your invitation and weight your votes as a result. And emails should be being sent. It can take a minute, and I didn't send one to myself to demo on screen, but I did do this only a couple hours ago, so I will reveal all my secrets to you now, but also just show you the kind of email that you're looking for. It's going to look like this. One of my development to-dos is to make these emails look cuter, but for now, you're looking for something like this. And also, if this is, you don't have to do this right now, you can actually use this vote link at any point between now and when this vote closes, which I think I set to be in June. If you click it, I can't actually use this because I already voted myself this morning, but you'll get a form like this where you can put your email address in again. And then you're going to enter into the, something a lot like a password reset flow. So if you click begin voting, you'll get, unlike this email, which will remain valid for the entire length of the vote, you're going to get a second email with a secret, actually unique and expiring vote link, which can only be used once. So if I were to, I mean, it won't work for me because I used it this morning. But you can use the vote link at any point during the day. Don't feel the pressure to do it now. But maybe, actually, you know what? I should have sent it to myself because I want to show you the vote screen. Okay. Unless one of you wants to do this part, I can talk over it while you vote.
Sarah, should I share my screen to show the votes?
Maybe it might be a little faster than me
Or I can
emailing
send
myself.
a screenshot as well on the chat.
What's that?
I could also send a screenshot, but it wouldn't be so interactive.
No, that's not as fun. Eventually, I will receive an email. Have you all received your emails, by the way? Any of you? There we go.
Yeah, it worked for me.
It worked for me too.
Yeah.
Nice. Glad to hear. All right, so I just went through the whole process I talked you through a second ago, and we'll get my unique vote link soon. You can see in the meantime that my mom sends me a lot of funny videos that I don't watch. Or rather, I watch them all at once and then showing your email to people is funny. Okay, so for those of you who aren't going through this process right now, this is the voting page, and it's designed to be mobile first, which is why actually everything in CultureStake is quite narrow. And so this is the part that is quadratic voting. And in order to explain quadratic voting, this is the best place to do it, I think. So you'll see this bar on the bottom for vote credits. I have a finite number of votes that I can distribute amongst the 3 artworks that were part of this festival, fictional festival. And I have a tendency actually to just distribute them fairly evenly, but maybe I should not do that for this vote because currently our vote results are flat. Everything has the same. So I'm spending my votes, and it's a bit hard to see also, but as I drag this guy across, he's getting happier, and he's actually getting happier faster the farther we go. So we're going to move through here. These steps are all getting slightly longer. And that's because my vote is having more, that's because, sorry, it takes farther to drag my little guy across to have an effect on the vote. So maybe this has already been covered, but quadratic voting is a voting technique that is designed to disincentivize extreme preferences. So in order to, really throw all of my vote weight behind minutes in the park, I might put, 100% of my votes here. But what's actually going to be counted in the final vote is the square root of the amount of vote credits that I gave here. So it means, for example, if I voted 16 here, my vote weight is 4. But if I voted 25, which is 9 more than 16, my ultimate vote weight is only 5. And so I have to invest more and more of my finite resource vote credits in order to hype one individual artwork over the others. I have to think strategically about my choices. This interface is, the voter doesn't need to know this aspect. The hope is that just seeing your bar go away, knowing that at some point you can't drag anymore, you can play with it to explore and learn kind of by doing about what's going on. Instead of sort of didactically explaining. All right, so I moved through this. I have made my decision. I love minutes in the park. And now I'm given a second question, which asks me for more detailed information about what I liked about that artwork. So in this case, I will vote like so on the second question. And here's the part where my signed vote has been sent. It's not really communicated, but here's my feedback about what I voted for. And I can view the vote results so far, which, like I said, because of the quadratic voting and my own tendency to vote for everything about equally, means we have 3 artworks that are all kind of winning. I need to keep voting for minutes in the park so that this changes. So yeah, that was my little quick CultureStake demo, and maybe it can also help catch you all back up to time a little bit. And I'll do a final prompt for questions if there are any, or feedback about your own voting experience as well.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, so I just wanted to quickly ask if so if this voting mechanism, there's probably like so many areas where people could vote on, right? But you're focused only on artworks and kind of performative art, is that correct?
I would definitely not say only performative art, but yes, definitely an art focus. Furtherfield is very interested in voting in general, and the possibilities of quadratic voting in general. But I think that their core expertise is in art use cases. Their network is in arts use cases. And I think a lot of the choices that went into CultureStake were targeted for the art audience. I mean, I'm not sure if I were voting in a general purpose DAO, I would end up with ticket stubs and a little like hard eyes bear as my, main features. So I think that specificity in a way is freeing when designing software.
Yeah, makes sense. And it is also the idea that this is kind of on this platform, because at the beginning I kind of thought, this is kind of a mechanism that I can integrate in, let's say, in a different context if I have an own platform where I want to vote about my neighborhood or something. There's also, non-art related, maybe things which have a local interest. But right now, this is not the idea. It's kind of focused on this platform itself that people can use, right?
Yeah, so for the time being, the administrator who is able to create votes is Furtherfield. It is definitely possible and has been kind of talked about that other people or organizations could make their own accounts on some future version of CultureStake and configure their own votes. And maybe in so doing, also customize the thing that is being voted on beyond artworks. But for now, it is targeted, and Furtherfield is the vote setter upper.
Got it, thanks.
And one other aspect, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah, quadratic voting kind of calls for a certain frame, because you have to make allocation of scarce resources, essentially, that gets calculated by the quadratic algorithm. So it has to be a finite set of elements that are being curated, more or less. So when it's open-ended, then actually you can still have the finite expression in the resource side of the users. But what do you think about that, Sarah? Do you think what I'm saying is correct, or it's more open-ended?
I think that it is true that only certain types of decision-making are well suited to quadratic voting. And I also, but I do think that depending on how you allocate the scarce resource of the vote credits, it can be more flexible. The way we did it actually is that you get vote credits proportionally per artwork. So I think you get, it's either 10 or 100, and I should remember, but I do not, per artwork in the festival. So the maximum here would be either 30 or 300. But if there were 8, it would be 80 or 800. So I suppose that maybe, I don't know how directly that addresses your question, but you don't have to necessarily constrain the things being voted on to a specific amount and the amount of resources in advance. It can be flexible. I will say that validating quadratic voting on chain fully, so not going through a relaying API built by us that does some validations off chain. It's actually like kind of thorny. There's a lot of math in there. So I suppose to fully decentralize quadratic voting, I guess it would be gas heavy.
Yeah, what I meant was that if I'm spending my energy on something, which means that I cannot spend my energy on something else, that set of some things must be bounded. Otherwise, if there's something new that comes in, which replenishes my energy to vote for that, that kind of destroys the logic of that scarcity of quadratic allocation, right?
Yeah. Well, I definitely adding things to the vote after it's begun, or you know, some DAOs allow you to change your vote after it's been placed if the decision isn't finalized, for example. I'm not sure that that would be particularly reasonable in the case of a quadratic vote. So yeah, to some extent, yeah, I agree.
Do we have any other questions?
Maybe I could just add here what the user case that we fleshed out at the beginning of the session about the choosing of the pilot performance is relying heavily on a version of what Sarah just presented. And yeah, Sarah, I love the aesthetics. It's really beautiful. Really looking forward to test it out more closely in the near future.
Thank you. I can't take credit for the design of this website. That is from a London-based design studio, Studio Height, who are fantastic and created our bear mascot and all of this.